My name's Matt Cowell. I'm CRO at Accelerate. So we're a Zoom CX and AI specialist deployment partner based here in the UK. And joining me today is Laura Ball.
Of Zoom. So yes, Zoom, the top question on everybody's lips, is it the Zoom? Yes, it is the Zoom. So much more than the meetings platforms you knew us for back in COVID, where we connected humans to have conversations, and we're sharing some of that experience with you today.
Absolutely, yeah, it's funny. Pretty much everyone who's come up to our stand in the main networking area over the last couple of days has gone, Zoom? like video Zoom? Yeah, that's the one. So if you spend time at AI conferences, and I'm guessing you do because you're here, you'll hear a lot about model performance, autonomous agents, reasoning frameworks, embeddings, orchestration layers, and all that stuff's really fascinating, right? Really fascinating. But on a Monday morning, none of that matters unless the system actually works in production. And there's a huge difference between an AI demo and an AI system that handles tens of thousands of calls, real customer interactions, where compliance matters, where service levels matter, and mistakes have consequences. So today we want to talk about that moment where theory meets production, and we want to explore one core idea. For Agentic AI to succeed, we need to manage it like we manage people. So let's start with the gap between how we talk about AI and how we actually bring it into practice.
So in theory, we know that Agentic AI is about autonomy. So it reasons, it acts, it plans, it chooses tools, it executes, it adapts, and that's the research conversation. But what we know and what we've learned from experience is that in production, it's about something really very different. It's about how do we respect an operations service levels? How do we log the decisions that it makes? How do we escalate safely to human colleagues when the time is right and required? How do we operate within the policy constraints of organisations? So in theory, autonomy is pretty expansive, but actually in production, we have to bound it. And that's where many projects encounter that friction. And that friction is why so many AI initiatives stall.
And most AI initiatives don't collapse dramatically. They just sort of stop moving in our experience. And that's not because the models aren't capable. They are. They're very capable. AI initiatives are stalling because integration's messy, because data lives in too many places, because governance teams are hesitating, ownership's unclear, success metrics are vague, and momentum slows. And this happens because AI capability has been accelerating faster than organizational readiness. And we see this a lot. We've built incredibly capable systems and models, but we haven't yet built the consistent operating models around them. And that's where my belief comes in, that we don't fail to operationalize AI because it's too intelligent. We fail because we don't manage it properly. What do we mean by that?
So if you think about when you hire somebody into your organisation, you don't just give them autonomy on day one. You have an onboarding programme that you bring them through. You give them a definition to their role. You clarify the boundaries within that role. You provide them with the right tooling. You provide them with training and ongoing coaching. You monitor that performance and you measure those outcomes. Agentic AI, it's no different. In production, you need to define the scope it's working within. You need to give it controlled tool access. It needs clear escalation paths for ongoing performance monitoring as it progresses through those. You have to look at it through a continuous coaching and improvement perspective. Because autonomy without the structure, it just drives chaos. But on autonomy with the structure, that's where you see the true capability. And it's this shift in mindset from deploying a model to managing a digital workforce member is what changes everything. And once you accept that bounded autonomy is the right model, that's when speed becomes possible.
Absolutely, and when we talk about the 30-day deployment model, people assume that corners are being cut, but in reality, in my experience, speed comes from focus. So if we look at, if we take the analogy of onboarding a human being and we look at the 30-day deployment model, Week one's about role definition, right? So what exactly is the AI agent responsible for? What is explicitly out of scope? What does success look like? Week two then is onboarding. So connecting the systems it's allowed to access, defining the guardrails, configuring permissions. Just like you wouldn't give a new employee unrestricted access to every system on day one. You don't do that with AI either. Week three then is supervised practice. So testing edge cases, intentionally trying to break it, observing the behavior. And then week four is controlled release, human oversight, live monitoring, feedback loops. This isn't about launch and hope. This is structured onboarding in exactly the same way as we would do with a human being. And then once they're onboarded, the role itself has already evolved. Traditional chatbots were like receptionists. They answered basic questions, they redirected traffic. Agentic systems are more like operations managers. They don't just respond, they act. So they update records, they trigger workflows, they summarize interactions for humans, they route intelligently based on context. And when AI starts participating in workflows, not just conversations, governance becomes absolutely essential. And that brings us to architecture. Because if you're going to manage AI like a person, you need the right infrastructure around it as well.
And so think of it again, to manage people, you have that infrastructure. You have the HR systems, you have performance dashboards, you have the access controls to the tooling, the technology. You provide humans with training programs and ongoing coaching. AI needs the same. That infrastructure needs a unified data layer. It needs controlled tooling permissions, centralized guardrails, testing environments, observability. Without all that, you're not managing AI, you're really just experimenting with it. And this is where architectural maturity, like federated AI, becomes really important. So a federated AI architecture allows organizations to separate the model from the management layer. So what does that mean? Well, it means you're not locked into that single intelligence engine. You can evolve your models over time. Your guardrails still remain consistent. Your tool permissions remain centralized. Your observability remains intact. So the model just becomes a part of the system. The governance layer then becomes the foundation. And that's a real critical shift because now we're designing AI for sustainability, not just for novelty. And then when that governance layer is unified, that's when the speed increases, but consolidation matters here too.
When data, tools and guardrails and testing environments live in separate systems, friction increases basically. And we see this quite a lot of organisations who maybe are experimenting with different models and tools. The problem is when you can't centralise that into a single plane, governance hesitates, your risk committees start pushing back and operational teams start losing confidence, and that's really where the projects start to slow down and sometimes don't even come to fruition at all. But when you're managing your data sources, your tool access, your guardrails, your testing, your deployment, all in a single place, in a single controlled plane, AI becomes a lot more manageable. And this is one of the reasons that platforms like Zoom, with Zoom Virtual Agent, are very interesting, not just because they add more AI, but because they actually consolidate the operational control. So what matters isn't just new capability, it's manageable capability. What we're seeing with the latest evolution of platforms like Zoom is stronger generative orchestration, improved reasoning across workflows, centralized tool management, enhanced guardrail configuration, and simplified deployment across voice and chat channels. So ultimately being able to build for both without needing to ultimately configure from the ground up for each channel. This helps you bring consistency into your customer experiences and into your agent experiences across your various UCaaS and CCaaS workflows. And the significance here isn't just feature expansion. This is a bit of an arms race or a horse race or whatever you want to call it. Everyone's out with new features and functionality all the time. It's not just about expansion though, it's about operational consolidation. That's where the success comes from. And operational maturity then starts to catch up with model maturity. And that's why faster deployments are becoming viable. Because once AI is operational, we also need to measure it correctly.
So if we were to measure AI like people, we shouldn't just measure it like a feature. For example, if you just measured containment rate, it's like measuring an employee purely on do they turn up, what's their attendance. It tells you something, but it's really not enough. So some better questions that we've been asking, things like, did it complete workflows accurately? Did it reduce cognitive load on human agents? Did it escalate appropriately? Did it improve resolution time? Did it generate insight? It shouldn't just deflect volume. We've seen some great examples of that. You know, it should be about enhancing the system and the process that it operates within. So we want to share with you where we've done a little bit of this before. A first and a really great example of this is SharkNinja. So you may know this company, a retailer. They provide hair dryers and vacuum cleaners and all sorts of home appliances. And we were tasked last year, June time, with them in order to build a virtual agent within 4 weeks. Their executive team had a very strict number of outcomes they were looking to deliver against. And we worked with Shark's internal development resources in order to provide them not only with the build and the 30-day process that Matt talked you through, but also in order to achieve that proof of value and help them work from that. We agreed the success metrics, we trained them, we enabled them and their internal team to work with the solution. So as we mentioned earlier, Zoom does provide that consolidated AI platform. We not only with Zoom partners such as Accelerate, we're able to move at pace, but it just makes that enablement and onboarding of brands much more seamless and easier. So we can then work within their operating model within their organisation. And once that definition and success criteria is collectively documented, it enabled us to then move into that really rapid sprint delivery, connecting Shark's existing knowledge and data sources, and developing the tools that and supporting those agent skills for them to deliver on the tasks that they wanted to. So we, you know, in addition to that, made sure that we were working with those guidances and guardrails and executing on that. So from week 3, we did the testing motion Matt described. We did that at pace, including adversarial testing. I can't get that word out ever. We tested to make sure if you tried to trick it, did it work? Did it stand up? But ultimately, the use cases were not just your simple questions. They were asking about free products and discounts. We were making sure that it wouldn't be spoofed and wouldn't then provide refunds or anything that it shouldn't have been doing at that time. We got a really successful proof of value out there within 4 weeks and into production, showing greater than 90% success rate across a huge variety of complex cases. We do troubleshooting, we do warranty check-in, we do parts and accessory ordering, and many more. And we're continuing to deploy that across global markets at real pace.
And another great example is one of our public sector clients, Oxfordshire County Council. So these guys are very forward-thinking. They're quite a forward-looking local authority based here in the UK. And like most local authorities and most central government, in fact, they need to do more with less. That's basically the brief. And they're trying to transform citizen access to their services, but they need to spend less money at the same time. And a lot of local authorities are also trying to close the digital divide. It's been one of those sectors, I guess, that's almost been sort of dragged kicking and screaming into the digital age, and obviously with budgets as they are now in this sector, a lot have really had to switch on to this. With OCC, we took the same approach. So ultimately, we defined the high volume use cases with them, and then we focused in on 1 or 2 that could really move the needle and help us to focus, improve the value. So for Oxfordshire, we actually started with blue badge applications and renewals and congestion charging. They're 2 relatively high volume areas that are quite resource intensive from an agent perspective. And because they're high demand areas, those manual processes were sort of low hanging fruit for us to really test out the AI capabilities and prove the case for it. So by focusing in on those initial use cases, we're able to very quickly prove that well-designed, well-managed and bounded Agentic AI can deliver. And we've continued to work with Oxfordshire month by month as we're building out, constraining and testing more of the key use cases for voice and chat. And as you can see, clients already reporting significant wins from working with the Zoom platform. And companies like SharkNinja and Oxfordshire are proving once again that we've reached a bit of an inflection point with Agentic AI now. For the first time, models are capable, APIs are accessible, governance frameworks are forming, platforms are consolidating control. And so the differentiator is no longer intelligence, it's deployment discipline and manageability. And the winners in this space will not be those with the smartest models. there'll be those who operationalise them responsibly.
So what we've learned and what we're sharing is Agentic AI doesn't fail in production because it's too intelligent. It fails because it isn't operationalised. If we want the next wave to succeed, we need to stop thinking about AI as magic and start thinking about it as an addition to our workforce.
Absolutely. We need to onboard it, we need to train it, we need to constrain it, we need to measure it, we need to invest in it, we need to manage it, and that's how you go from theory to production with Zoom.
Thank you.